Welcome back to the Absolute Arsenal podcast. This is episode 4. I'm your host, PJ Davidson. You can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at AbsoluteAFC. You can also find us on Facebook by looking up Absolute Arsenal. And then you can read the daily blog and also find all of our podcast contact info on the web at absoluteafc.com. Again, that's www.absoluteafc.com. All right. So welcome back. Apologies for brief hiatus on the blog and on the podcast. A lot going on personally and professionally. But we're here. It is now February 28th. We're recording this just after 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in New York City, as a lot has certainly taken place since we last chatted. Big news about Bukayo Saka and the supposed agreement of his new contract. You've also got an update today from Fabrizio Romano on William Saliba's renewal, a little bit about Kieran Tierney's potential to leave at the end of the season, and some quotes from Arteta. But why don't we get started with the Leicester match, and then we'll jump into contracts, as well as the Premier League 2 match with our U21s yesterday, where Emil Smith-Rowe and Jacob Kiwior, hopefully one day I learn if that is the way you say his name or not, both featured, which was very exciting. And then, of course, the Everton match coming up tomorrow. Gigantic match, our game in hand that we have been waiting to get back level with City on, and we'll really see what this team is made of. Anyways, the Leicester match. Probably one of the more dominant 1-0 victories that you'll ever see. Arsenal were definitely boosted early on with the news that James Maddison would be out. And when the team news came out about Leicester, it was a bit surprising, to say the least. There were a number of, I'd say, regular starters that were not in the 11. With that said, I mean, they've got plenty of attacking talent. What's his name? Harvey Barnes is a really top player, in my opinion. I would look to him to move to a bigger club within the Premier League in the next year or two, especially if Leicester go down, which wouldn't be a surprise at all. I would love him at Arsenal, but we are clearly loaded on the left-hand side, and I don't believe that he would fit the profile for the other roles that he could potentially step into at Arsenal. I don't think he's quite the right fit, which is clearly of great importance to Edu, Mikel Arteta when it comes to recruitment. So, oh well. Also a fan of Dewsbury Hall in midfield. Ian Ancho seems to have settled nicely at Leicester, while Jamie Vardy seems to have aged pretty quickly, as he is certainly not the Jamie Vardy of old anymore. But, yeah, the defense is pretty shit. There's really no other way to say it. Tielemans also did not start. He's clearly one of their better players, but I'm sure his contract situation is playing into that, since he will be a free agent at the end of the season, and I'm sure we will be eternally linked to him yet again. Does it make sense? I don't know. We'll see, but yeah. Anyways, we started the match really brightly. We had 75% possession for the majority of the match. I think we ended at about 66%. But Leicester did set a new record, which was very impressive, with the lowest XG in, I don't know if it's the history of the Premier League, but at least the history of the tracking of the stat. Some places said 0.01, others said 0.02 goals. I think that tells the story of how much work our defense and Aaron Ramsdale had to do. But when called upon, I mean, they did a good job. Saliba and Gabriel, again, just a elite partnership. Although it seems that they had some disagreements at full time. Nothing to be worried about. I think that's a non-story. They seem to be best mates, and I think if anything, it's encouraging that you see them kind of bickering at full time in a game where the other team's XG was 0.01, 0.02. I mean, non-existent, basically. And they're still holding themselves to that sort of a standard. So, again, really encouraging, in my opinion. I'll take it. But just going through the stats here. 66% possession. They had one shot. It was not on target. We had 10, only 2 on target. One thing I will say about our performance was, I think and this has been an issue, especially since Jesus came out of the team, is our ability to make the right decisions in the final third, maybe display a little more calmness on the ball, picking the right pass. This was a match where, and I said it in the blog, I think that we should have made this a statement game. It is a game away from home, so it's never going to be a gimme, in my opinion, at least. But this was a game to win 3-0, 4-0. Everything was there for it. Again, their defense is really, really poor. Their recruitment has been really, really poor. Their, I guess, contractual situations aren't good, with the likes of Tielemans going to go for a free when that's a player that they easily could have brought in a fee for, which it seems they could desperately use. But again, this was a match I think we really could have provided a statement win. We didn't. Then you look at Man City, who played right after us, and they were up 3-0 inside 50 minutes or 55 minutes. Ended up winning 4-1, but they played a Bournemouth side that have not looked impressive for the majority of the season. They have pulled off a couple shock results, but again, they really haven't looked that good. And that's a City team who are trying to be proactive protagonists when it comes to this title race, and they're trying to attack us, where it almost feels at times like we're holding on. We obviously came through a rough patch, and we are starting to show our cojones, as Tardini would say, as we get deeper into this. But again, the Leicester game, it was a comfortable 1-0 win. One goal is always scary because it just takes one moment, one poor tackle in the box, one bad deflection, what have you, and you can quickly be looking at dropping 2 points or 3 points against a team where we should be killing them. We dominated them in possession, but again, I'd like to see something else when it comes to the final third. Really encouraging performance from Leandro Trossard. I do think refereeing decisions could have changed this a little bit, the complexion of this 1-0 win. Of course, Trossard had a phenomenal finish that should have put us up, if not for the foul call on Ben White holding their keeper. I have no complaints about them pulling that back. If somebody did that to Ramsdale, I would expect that call. It did happen in the past with the Douglas Luiz goal off the corner when we played Villa earlier in the season. But, just because they got that call wrong, I don't want them to get this call wrong either. I mean, we're looking for a higher standard of refereeing, and I think it was the right call, which is a shame because Trossard finished really, really nicely, and that's clearly a trademark of his game. But he still was able to provide the winner for us when he played a beautiful pass into Gabriel Martinelli, who finished. Scary frickin' moment as he held his knee, but replay showed that it was more him getting cleated than anything. It wasn't a ligament thing. So it seems that he is okay, at least as far as we know. He was able to continue on, and that's really important for us. But again, Leandro Trossard, player of the match. It was really, really encouraging because it gave us the ability to not make Eddie Nketiah play 90 minutes. He's looked gassed, is an understatement in terms of where he's been the last few games. His finishing's been a bit off, chances that you wish he would take, but what can you do? We got the win. Partey came out at the end, which was nice. We certainly needed a little bit more control. Another positive from the match, again, Jorginho. I mean, he's been a really, really, really shrewd signing. Somebody who nobody for the most, I should say nobody, I'm sure there's someone out there. When we were linked with Jorginho, I think all of us had a pit in our stomach, knowing what he's done to us, that he's Chelsea, that every signing for the most part we've ever made directly from Chelsea has been an absolute disaster, nightmare, awful in every way possible. But it seems for once we might have gotten one over on him. He's going to be really important to the run-in. I'm really glad about the length of the contract and the fact that there's a team option. So next year he's depth for Europe, which will most certainly be playing in Europe. Most definitely, I would say the Champions League, but I don't want to count my chickens. But yeah, I mean, him and Trossard are signings that can slide right in. And at the time in the window, the phrase that I continually used was sensible. These were two sensible transfers. They weren't our first choice, and it seems that we've got a penchant for doing really well with second and third choice signings who have come into Arsenal and done a really good job. take Zinchenko, for example. He's a prime example of somebody who wasn't our first choice, and he's coming in and he's doing well. Same with Aaron Ramsdale. We wanted David Raya, who's still doing really well at Brentford, and it sounds like is going to be pushing for a move to a bigger club this summer. But second choice players, hats off to our recruitment. Leandro Trossard is hitting the ground running, has already won us multiple points in terms of his impact. It's just he's a ready-made Premier League player who's played at a high level. He knows the league. He knows the style. He's fitting right into what we do, while also providing something different in terms of the way he plays a bit more centrally than, say, a Martinelli, and again, gives us something different, can play in multiple positions, given that he clearly was put at striker. Not your traditional striker, but he did a great job. The same can be said when it comes to Jorginho. I mean, these weren't our first choice guys. We didn't get who we wanted, but they were players who could come in and make an immediate impact and slide right in, whereas the guys that we clearly wanted in their place couldn't. Mudryk, I don't know if it's really fair to judge him at Chelsea right now, because he wouldn't be thrown into the fray, I think, quite as intensely as he is at Chelsea right now. If he were at Arsenal, I mean. He's one for the future, though. I think that he's also in a complete disaster of a Chelsea team. Shocking. They just signed a bunch of big names and thought they could magically gel. I hope they sack Potter, because I think he's a really good manager, and I don't see them bringing in anybody better. He's a long-term manager target, the way that we brought in Arteta, the way that Liverpool brought in Klopp. It wasn't all rainbows and sunshine at the beginning for Klopp. It certainly was not rainbows and sunshine at the beginning for Arteta. But their clubs gave them time, and look what's happened. Liverpool are going through a bit of a reset, but there's no doubt that they want Klopp there. Klopp wants to be there, and he's ready to do it all over again. And hopefully we never hit that point with Arsenal and we just win everything forever. But if we hit that point again, Arteta's a guy that I would like to keep and continue to give him chances to right the ship. But nonetheless, going back to what I was saying, really shrewd signings, guys who could hit the ground running more so than a Mudryk could, more so than a Caicedo from Brighton could. Again, just really good business, situational business, given where we are and that we really need to shore up the league. It gives me sort of a throwback to adding a Jose Antonio Reyes in January. It's somebody who can just take us over the top, give us those extra points that we need to get it over the line. Hopefully that's what takes place. There's a lot of games left, and they're coming thick and fast. We're essentially playing twice a week for the rest of the season. That could, not be quite as intense depending on what we do in the Europa League, but again, we'll see. The only negative I would really have from Leicester, if I had to pick, was the performance of Granit Xhaka. It seemed to me that Leicester really wanted him on the ball because he's just not the same dynamic attacking threat that we have elsewhere. They would much rather have Granit Xhaka on the ball than Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Jorginho, Martinelli, etc. I mean, that's the guy they want with the ball. He is just not able to carry the same way. He's not dribbling past anybody. He's fairly one-footed. He's not as agile. And again, I think that what Granit Xhaka has been asked to do and transform into, he has been incredible. And I absolutely think he should continue to be a part of the squad at Arsenal. Should he be our starting left 8? No. We need to upgrade there. And that's somewhere that you're going to see a lot of links in the summer. Of course, Declan Rice is the big one. I'm still very, very dubious of that because I think West Ham are going to ask for a completely absurd fee, and they're going to look squarely at Todd Bowley and Chelsea to pull it off. And if I had to pick, I'd say they're going to get it done because I don't know that the will of the player is going to exceed the fee, and I think he'd be happy to go to Chelsea. But again, hope I'm wrong. Nonetheless, that's a position we just need to do better on. But Granit Xhaka is so important to Arsenal as a club. He's going to be great depth as we compete in Europe. I see him as an essential piece, even when he's a little bit past it, say, a Jordan Henderson, a Michael Carrick. You could even say, I don't think he's quite there yet, but a James Milner. I mean, players who can just be part of the squad, positive, but the leadership that he provides is immense. I think Rob Holding is another guy who provides that, but he absolutely has to go in the summer. He's an English central defender. He's still fairly young, and he's going to be a great fit for, I'd say, 16 probably clubs in the Premier League. We're just not one of them the way that we play now. It's so much quicker. The ground that our center backs have to cover because of the way that we play with our outside backs, especially Zinchenko at left back, basically shifting into midfield, the space that Gabriel has to cover on the left, which means that, there's even more then to cover for Saliba as well. That's just not something Rob Holding can do. He can't play a high line. He can't race back and recover the way that we ask William Saliba to do on a frequent basis. I absolutely love the guy. He's an honorary American in my eyes. He's an incredible signing that we're going to see a great profit on, but he has to go. And I think him and Granit Xhaka are probably the two biggest leaders in that changing room. And if Rob Holding's going to go, I don't think you can afford to let Granit Xhaka go. Again, great depth, great member of the squad on the pitch, off the pitch, but we need to upgrade. And that's okay. It would have been nice to do it in January. We clearly tried to a degree, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you're seeing Fabio Vieira frequently coming on for Granit Xhaka. He was a player, Xhaka, that never came off. I mean, under 3 different managers, and you can even call it 4 if you want to call the interim managers, and when Freddie stepped in. But Arsene Wenger always played him. Unai Emery always played him. Mikel Arteta always played him and did everything to keep him at the club when it seemed almost certain that he was going to go after the disaster situation, stripping of the captaincy, the freak out, Crystal Palace when he got subbed off, and the row with the fans. And look at him now. He's a fan favorite with people who, myself included, just never rated him, never thought he had what it takes. If there's a good fee offered for Xhaka, I'd consider it, but I think he's really valuable to the club, and I hope we keep him, even though he is my negative of the match stock falling. It's nitpicking, but it's just reality. So on we move. Again, 3 points. That's the most important thing, despite my, I guess, greediness for a 3-0, 4-0 win. But what can you do? So as I mentioned earlier, let's talk contracts. Really, really exciting news since I last did the podcast about the contract for Bukayo Saka essentially being agreed. It sounds like they're just dealing with final details, but everything is in order, which is super, super exciting. Really great for the club. It's great for Hale End. I will say Bukayo Saka was never a contract that worried me so much. I could never see Bukayo Saka saying, I'm leaving Arsenal for Manchester City. I just don't think he's that kind of player. If this was a Barcelona, a Real Madrid, maybe even like a Bayern Munich, something like that, maybe his head would be turned. But with the way this project is going, with the way he's a part of it, I couldn't possibly have seen a scenario in which Bukayo Saka said, I want to leave Arsenal. There's unfinished business, and it sounds like he's going to be signing a contract worth upwards of $200K a week. I think it's a steal. I'm honestly pretty surprised that it's only $200 a week. I think he's worth more, and the fact that it's till 2028. I mean, that's a 5-year deal. I mean, that's unbelievable. What a piece of work done by Edu, Arteta, certainly Richard Garlick. I mean, it's one of the most massive bits of news you could ever ask for with a club in Arsenal where we've all been through the pain of our best players leaving at the height of their careers or as they're getting to the peak. You think Cesc Fabregas, you think Samir Nasri, you think Kolo Toure, you think Gael Clichy, Ashley Cole, Robin Van Persie. I mean, how many great players have we lost as they were just getting to the top? And he wants to stay. I mean, he's our star boy. He's our unicorn. It's a really special moment, and one that I think all of us as fans should be really excited about. And then this morning, as I went to the gym in the morning and checked my phone afterwards, and there was a little, we'll call it a Fabrizio bomb that William Saliba also wants to extend. He wants to stay at Arsenal. And I think this was the one that worried me when it came to Martinelli, Saka, and Saliba. Much like Saka, Martinelli never really ruined me. I mean, he's been super, super clear about his absolute love for the club, the fact that we believed in him, that we brought him in, that Arteta managed him so, I think, well, in a time where there was so much pressure. Why isn't Martinelli playing when he was constantly on the bench, not even getting onto the pitch? And everyone wondered, what is Arteta doing? Does Arteta not like Martinelli? I mean, this is a guy we plucked from the 4th division of Brazil, and he's an absolute world beater. And again, deserves every penny that he's getting. When asked about re-signing, he said, all I need is a pen. This is a guy that's, again, just so special, and to have both our left and our right wings shored up for the foreseeable future is great. William Saliba, on the other hand, this was not a sure thing, and it's not done, so I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't speak as if it is done, because it's not. With that said, it sure sounds like it's going to get done, and he wants to stay, and Arsenal will hopefully get to the point where they pay him what he wants. I mean, he's in a heck of a position, though. He signed with us in, I believe it was the summer of 2019. I mean, that's a long time ago. It's almost 4 years ago. First year, he gets loaned right back to France. Super understandable. Really, really young defender. Wasn't coming into the Arsenal team at that point, so the first year made sense. But what a mess we made of the following year, where we had too many other things going on in the transfer window and basically ran out of time to figure out a move for William Saliba, and he gets stuck in the reserves for Arsenal, playing youth football. Wouldn't even get a look for us in any of the first team competitions, Europa League group stages. I mean, it was so bad. There's certainly value to him training with Arsenal, don't get me wrong. But that was a mess, and I think Arsenal will be the first to admit that they screwed that one up. He got his loan in the second half of the season, yet again did amazing. Everyone assumes, okay, William Saliba's coming back, and he's going into the first team. Wasn't to be. Clearly, Arteta still said he's not ready. Much like Gabriel Martinelli, you had to wonder, does he not like this guy? What's going on? But it seems like it was a brilliant move. Getting him to Marseille, getting him into playing Champions League football, playing at a really high level in a really good team with significant talent around him. And what a season he had. And he showed that he is worthy of playing at the highest level. But that didn't mean it was going to be at Arsenal. I mean, this was an ugly situation for all facts and purposes, at least publicly. Saliba had made some comments and some things on social media that didn't reflect so great about his feelings towards the club. But we all knew all along. I mean, this is a lifelong childhood Arsenal fan. And it seems that he came back and Arteta was clear, no, he's staying. He's a part of the team. We expect him to do great things. And there was a headache because Ben White, we all assumed he's strictly a center back. So you've got Gabriel, you've got Ben White, you've got Saliba. One of them's going to miss out. I mean, I think that's what I was thinking. I think just about all Arsenal fans were thinking, okay, one of these really good center backs is going to miss out. We're going to have a situation because Tomiyasu's, of course, playing at right back. Well, not how it worked out. Ben White got shifted to right back because Saliba played so damn well that Arteta had no choice but to play him. Gabriel plays at left center back because he's the only left-footed center back that we have, and that's something Arteta requires. Rather than choose between White and Saliba, shifted White out to right back, which it sounds like he's pretty much played his whole life, and he even considers that his main position. And it's just, again, it's worked out so well. I mean, we're in first place, clearly. It's working out pretty darn well. And Saliba's having an incredible year. His value skyrocketed. He's getting capped by the France national team. He goes to the World Cup, and he's got the world at his feet. He is licking his chops. His agent, of all people, is definitely licking his chops. Like, all right, we didn't forget what Arsenal did to us, how they handled that, how they really hurt Saliba personally, could have hurt his career with the lack of a loan disaster the first half of a couple seasons ago. But it seems like Saliba's just really, really happy. He's formed a great partnership with Gabriel Magalhaes, who I believe is 25 years old. Saliba's 21, although I believe he turns 22 this coming March because that's how it works. But he's got a young center back next to him. They've formed a great partnership on the pitch. They formed a great friendship off the pitch, and he just looks happy. I mean, every single time we score a goal, you see Saliba going absolutely insane with the fans, jumping, making hilarious faces. I think Stuart caught an amazing photo of him with his tongue out last game, or maybe it was the match before. But I mean, this is a guy who's just really, really enjoying himself, and he knows he's getting paid. So again, it looks like Arsenal are ready to step up to the plate, and the last time we heard, they were still pretty far apart, but it sounds like Saliba wants to stay, and that should be enough to get this over the line and for the two sides to find an agreement on a contract that's hopefully very long-term, keeps him there, keeps our defense rock solid, and yeah, we're going to have to figure out something in the summer window when it comes to a right-sided center back, because again, Jacob Kiwior is clearly going to be the backup to Gabriel Magalhaes at left center back, and as I said earlier on the pod, I fully expect Rob Holding to go. He's just not meant for this iteration of Arsenal, so we are going to need somebody who is able and willing to step into that role. Could it be an internal solution with a Takahiro Tomiyasu? And then you see a Brooke Norton-Cuffy come in as the backup for Ben White at right back. Could you see, not knowing Ainsley Maitland-Niles' contract situation, it seems like that's where he's playing at Southampton, and he's doing an okay job, but very good chance that ship has sailed with Arsenal. So we will see. So when it comes to the rest of the contract situation, it's actually really good for us right now. Going through what our current contracts are, the only guy who is expiring at the end of the year looks to be Reece Nelson. He wants to stay. It's a matter of if we want him to stay. So we'll see how that one plays out. It's not, respectfully to Reece Nelson, it's just not a big deal for us what we decide, whether we keep him or not. If we can get him at a pretty low fee and 1-year deal or whatever it is, okay, sure, why not? But we'll have to see what goes on there. When it comes to the end of 2024, the people you have coming up are Granit Xhaka, who I've spoken of before. I think that's one where we can get a pretty easy renewal done. I think that you should be able to get one done that's maybe a 2-year deal with a club option for a third, maybe even a fourth, where we can hold the cards there depending on how things play out. You got Rob Holding, who I said I think that you say thanks for the memories, but it's time to go. And the fact that he's English, you should be able to get a pretty decent fee from a mid to lower table side where he slots right into a starting role. You got Mohamed El Neni, who we just triggered that 1-year extension, more the Santi Cazorla, Mikel Arteta honorary. You're at the end of your career, you're crocked. You got hurt playing for us, so we're not going to cut ties and have you be on your own. Reportedly, it was not a trigger, but rather we agreed a lower wage with him. And again, I think it's just the classy thing that an Arsenal does. Will he stay beyond next year? Probably not. He said he'll sign forever with Arsenal. And it seems like an easy one to do if we ever wanted to keep him. But long story short, not one to be concerned about and really not one to care about in any way. And then lastly is Jorginho, who's up at the end of 2024, but we have a 1-year club option on that. So if he continues to do what he does and the lack of pace is not an issue, then hey, we keep him. And if not, we move on. And you got to figure that we're going to bring in a younger option anyways this summer to add to the squad, because we are going to need a deeper squad of quality starting next year playing in the Champions League. So that's one to look forward to. The 2025 contracts are the interesting ones. These are the ones that we've really got to get going on this summer when all of these players hit the 2-year line, which is an important one where you, at least Arsenal, I mean, we've pretty much said that 2 years we've got to either keep or sell, extend or sell. And if they're not willing to extend and you're not so hell-bent on keeping them, you got to let them go. So those players are Thomas Partey, Martin Odegaard, Takahiro Tomiyasu, Matt Turner, and Aaron Ramsdale. So going through those, I would say Aaron Ramsdale and Martin Odegaard are the 1,000,000% no-brainers. You extend them, long-term deals. They're significant parts of the club for the foreseeable future. Thomas Partey, the only reason I'm not putting him in that bracket, he's a 99.9% no-brainer. The only worry is his fitness. I think that you absolutely have to keep him. He's I don't think he is the best player in the team. That's Bukayo Saka. But I think he's the most important player to the team and how we play. And I think the ability to find another player who replicates what he does is going to be near impossible. It might literally be impossible almost for years and years, how you heard about us trying to replace Patrick Vieira. I mean, he's different gravy. I mean, what he does is just so unique, and I don't know if there's another one out there. And you got to keep him. You just need to effectively plan for the fact that he can't stay fit. You need to have other players around him, much like an Emil Smith Rowe, where if they're part of the team, they're going to be huge. But if they're not fit, you're not sitting there scrambling because you weren't prepared. So basically, long story short, Thomas Partey, you got to extend, and you'd like to think he'll want to stay too. He seems happy. That brings us to the last two, which are Takahiro Tomiyasu and Matt Turner. From an Arsenal perspective, these are also, in my opinion, no-brainers in terms of wanting to extend. I think these are going to come down to the will of the player. When it comes to Matt Turner, he has improved immensely. Like one of the most impressive improvements from when they walked in the door to this point in a season. He came from MLS where he wasn't really being asked to use his feet, coming into Arsenal where it's essential as a keeper that you can use your feet, that you can play out of the back. We're not a team that plays it long. We're not built to play it long. And Matt Turner has, just as every single time in his soccer career, since he was a walk-on at Fairfield to getting into MLS, to every step of the way, he's proven people wrong. I mean, he is an unbelievable shot stopper. That's clearly his claim to fame. He comes up in the big moments. That's Matt Turner. But now he's learning how to play with his feet, and he's really excelling. The question for him is, does he want to be a number one? He can be a number one elsewhere, but it's very unlikely to happen at Arsenal. That's just the reality. So is Matt Turner content to be the number two? Does he worry to a degree with the 2026 World Cup coming up, especially the fact that it's on U.S. soil? Does he want to go somewhere where he makes sure he's playing week in, week out? He's the undisputed number one. He keeps that number one when it comes to the U.S. men's national team into the next World Cup. I mean, that's a distinct possibility. Again, these are both players that I would keep. It's down to the will of the player, though. The next one is Takahiro Tomiyasu. I am one of the biggest Tomi fans you'll find. I think he is an incredible player. It's a shame what has happened to him lately when it comes to fitness. He's had a horrible last year when it comes to injury and staying fit, and it's a shame because when he came into the Arsenal team, I mean, this was a masterstroke of a signing. We were between him and Emerson Royale, and Emerson Royale was the shiny toy from Barcelona, super hyped up, and you can understand that he's the easy, obvious, quote, big name choice. And then you had this kind of unknown Japanese international playing at Bologna and Serie A that, he's not a big name, he's not flashy, certainly not Barcelona, but we ended up with him, and Tottenham ended up with Royale, and I think it's pretty obvious who got the better end of that one. A fit and healthy Tomi is competing neck and neck with Ben White for that right back spot. He has shown that he can play left back. when he was named as the starter at left back ahead of Kieran Tierney when Zinchenko was out earlier this season, I mean, that was a shock to the system. Nobody expected that. He's versatile. I mean, he plays center back for the Japanese national team. He's a player who is he's everything you could ever ask for in a starter, in a squad player, and I think that he would start for 95% of the teams in the world, the top teams in the world, not any team in the world, the top teams. But yeah, it's got to be down to the will of the player. He's clearly not going to start at center back. He should not be our starting left back. That's just ridiculous. He can fill in there, but he shouldn't be the starter. And he's got a fight on his hands at right back with Ben White. Does he want that competition where he's likely to lose that fight? It sure seems like. I mean, Ben White's a £50 million signing. He's English. It's all the other. It's just there's a lot going against Tomiyasu for winning that spot. Before it was Ben White was at right center back. Gabriel was at left center back. Tomi naturally slots in at right back. All he had to do is beat out an old, slow Hector Bellerin and a Ainsley Maitland-Niles who dreams of playing midfield when he's not good enough. So you don't really have much competition there. Can't forget Cedric. Of course. He has to beat out Cedric. I mean, Cedric's Ballon d'Or. He should win everything ever. Especially jumping into the celebration photos. I digress. But nonetheless, I mean, again, the will of the player. Is Tomiyasu willing to stay, compete, go for it at Arsenal? Or does he go maybe drop down a little bit, and he's a guaranteed starter at right back for almost any team in the world? He'll probably start at center back for a lot of other teams in the world. So again, we'll see what happens with those two to watch. But I would imagine that as soon as we get the Saliba deal done, attention's going to turn towards the extensions of Martin Odegaard, Aaron Ramsdale, and Thomas Partey. And hopefully none of them are fussy. They're easy to get done. And we can continue to add on top of that. It's going to be a big summer where we need to expand on the squad significantly as we head into Champions League football and trying to not just win the Premier League, but win the biggest titles in Europe. So a few to watch, really exciting stuff, really positive things, great problems to have. Next up is the U21 match yesterday. Arsenal took on Chelsea away at Chelsea in the Premier League 2 with their under-21 team. The really exciting thing from an Arsenal perspective was the inclusion of Emil Smith-Rowe and Jacob Kiwior in the starting lineup. For Smith-Rowe, really positive to see him playing minutes in a real match. He's such a good player. I mean, we forget just how crucial he was to everything that we did last season. He was our second leading scorer. I mean, he was above Saka for a good chunk of the year, if I recall right. I mean, he was so crucial to what we did, so positive. I mean, I forget what pundit it was, but someone said he's the best carrier of the ball in the Premier League. I mean, and he's made at Arsenal since he was a little kid, and he broke into the team. He saved Mikel Arteta's managerial career at Arsenal for all facts and purposes. He's so huge to everything that we do and how we do it. And he hasn't even done anything for us this year, and we're in first place. I mean, imagine adding a healthy, in-form Emil Smith-Rowe to what we're doing. It's just, I see him as the heir apparent to that left 8 role that Xhaka currently has. I think he's so perfect for it. He's so good. He can score. He can assist. He's a bigger kid than I think we give him credit for. And he can be a bigger body if he can just learn to be a little bit more proactive and aware in his defending. I mean, he's got that position on lock forever. He's certainly a lot cheaper than signing Declan Rice, but it was really good. He had a great 45 minutes, came through it seemingly unscathed, sounds like, which is the most important thing. Easily could have had 2 goals had anybody been in goal for Chelsea other than Gaga Slonina, who, of course, I know very well, my former employer, Chicago Fire. starting keeper there. U.S. men's national team has been capped. He has no business playing in a game. I mean, it's one thing to have a rehab start like Smith Rowe, but he has no business playing in that game. I guess we had Kiwior, but he should be on loan playing minutes right now. He should not be sitting in the reserves for Chelsea. I mean, it's completely ridiculous when they've got two big name keepers in Mendy and Kepa. He needs to be on loan somewhere playing. It's ridiculous. But I mean, he made 2 spectacular saves on Emil Smith Rowe to keep him off the score sheet. But you could tell. I mean, he was head and shoulders above the players around him on that pitch in the reserve match, and hopefully it's a sign that he can start to contribute 20-minute cameos at the end of the match. He's been on the bench, but it seems pretty clear Arteta did not want to use him under any circumstances if he could help it. Just like Cozier Dewberry frequently makes the bench, Arteta is not going to use him in case there's some completely absurd, insane emergency. And still, I feel like he would play Rob Holding at right wing before he'd play Dewberry. But anyways, really positive from Smith Rowe. And then Jacob Kiwior, I mean, it was interesting because Arsenal technically lost this game. I mean, not technically. They did. They lost the match 1-0 to a goal somewhere in, the 83rd, 85th minute, something like that, off a deflection. But it was, the first half was where Smith Rowe and Kiwior played. And then the second half was different without them in there. But it was a really positive performance, even though he didn't have much to do defensively. Watching him in possession, the way he passed the ball, the way he pinged those long diagonal balls that he seemingly was known for in Serie A with the Polish national team during the World Cup. I mean, he looks a really promising player. Mikel Arteta clearly demands to have a left-footed left center back. We tried with Pablo Mari. He's just not good enough. And the hope is that Jacob Kiwior can be that and back up Gabriel Magalhaes. And the fact that he's played 50-something straight matches is immensely impressive. But it's been out of necessity, not any other reason. You need to give your players rests, and he's an absolute warrior for playing all those games. But hopefully now bringing in a Jacob Kiwior means that he is able to get a rest. We're going to need the whole squad the way that we're playing twice a week for the next 3 months, essentially. He's going to get called upon at some point to step up and make an impact, or at least not screw up. So just to get him in actual match action, even though it is the reserves, is really, really important because, as opposed to, say, a midfielder or an attacking player, your timing as a defender is so important. If you're a split second late in anything as a defender, that could be the other team striker going in, that could be you fouling them in a dangerous position, giving up a penalty. Screwing something up at the back is way more costly than screwing something up at the front. So if he's going to be called in, let's make sure his timing's good. He's ready to go, because this is a guy who played 20 out of 22 matches, I want to say, for Spezia this year. Played every match at the World Cup. Had Robert Lewandowski just cooing over him in his ability to come in and how he totally took him by surprise. I mean, this is arguably the best center forward in the world, not named Erling Haaland. So no small praise. But it was a fun match. I mean, we clearly got some serious talent at youth level. Matt Smith, who I really hope for his sake one day gets in for a first team match for Arsenal. He's way too good for reserve team football. But it sounds like he's not good enough for Arsenal, so we really need to move him on for his sake. He's a really quality player. It sounds like he did really well on loan last year. He shouldn't be rotting in the reserves. It's not fair to him. It's probably nice for some of our players to play with a player of that quality in the U21s, but again, Matt Smith's too good. He shouldn't be there. Who else looked really good? Roe Walters. I mean, what a player. I mean, he looks so good. Sousa looks so good. Our attackers are really, really exciting, really, really athletic, very shifty, but I think that they lack a little bit of composure and patience in attack. But again, I think that comes with age and that comes with time, and it's not easy. It's not easy to score goals If it was that easy, everyone would do it. But they really, I mean, not that I can recall. I don't remember them really threatening at any point yesterday for Arsenal. But there's obviously talent there. There's no doubt about it between Cozier, Dewberry, Sago Jr. I forget who the other guy on the wing was, but they did well. Ethan Nwaneri, youngest Premier League debutant of all time, looked really good when he came on in the second half. Who else played? Catalan, Sirjan, however you say it. You can see why he's been so highly rated by the club for so long. Yeah, I mean, all things considered, it was a really good performance. Omari Hutchinson, featured for Chelsea, pour some out for Omari Hutchinson. What an absolute cock up his agents and guidance has been on him. I mean, you go to Chelsea and they've signed 86 wingers at $8 billion, and you're never going to get a sniff, and you're just going to go on loan every single season until you see out your deal. You're never going to get sold by Chelsea. They're going to hold you hostage. And oh wait, they didn't have time to get your deal done at the end of the window. I think he was supposed to go to West Brom, but other things just got them distracted, and now he gets to rot in the reserves playing reserve team football, which he is way too good for, seemingly at least. He does seem very one-footed. I never quite noticed that with Arsenal, but I mean, they pretty much knew that if you let Omari Hutchinson get the ball on his left, he's going to hurt you. And the team just did anything and everything they had to do to force him onto his right. And guess what? Omari Hutchinson didn't really hurt us. I guess I feel bad for him. I mean, yeah, I'm petty and pissed that he left Arsenal, and but at the same time, he's just a kid who was poorly advised. It seems you've got to assume we wanted to keep him. It seemed very random and sudden when the news came out that he signed for Chelsea. But again, what can you do? There's been 8 million really promising players to come out of Arsenal, and very few of them have actually made it at the top level. Not just Arsenal, but even the Premier League, Championship. There's not a whole lot of players who make it at that level, despite how promising they were. So it's a tough jump. Hopefully, I guess he makes it at some point. But yeah, what a mess that they've made of his situation. Sorry. Anyways, that leaves us to Everton tomorrow. We'll get into that a bit more on the blog tomorrow morning. But this is the grudge match. This is the game in hand that we've consistently had over City because the Queen decided to die, and I guess that means we can't play soccer matches. Nonetheless, this is huge. I mean, we severely screwed up not winning that game. I mean, yes, it was Sean Dyche. Yes, it was at Goodison Park. It was the new manager bounce. They packed 11 behind the ball. And that's how we lose games, when teams play low blocks and yada, yada, yada. No excuses. We have to win tomorrow. If we do not win tomorrow, it is going to hurt so badly to drop more points to this failing Everton side. You really you have to hope that Thomas Partey is ready to go from the start. It'll be interesting to see what we do between our front three. Leandro Trossard has done phenomenally well since he came into the team, and it would be very, very harsh to drop him. But at the same time, Saka's not getting dropped. You've got to think after Martinelli scored, he's going to stay in the team, and then is it Trossard or is it Eddie? You could make a case for either one. They've got some big burly center halves there. So could the fact that we have Trossard a little more athletic, a little more, I guess, not your classic 9, could that be to our advantage? Because that pulls them out and makes those center backs play in a way they're not comfortable? Or will he just get eaten alive going against the towers? I don't know. We're ideally not going to just be firing and crosses against them, because that's just not going to be the way that we're successful. Naturally as our team, but especially against a team like this with all these big bodies, playing the Sean Dyche football that Sean Dyche has always played. But I'm optimistic. I'm going to go for a prediction of 2-1 to the Arsenal. Yeah, I really hope I'm right. So yeah, let's secure the 3 points with that game in hand going away, and let's get the momentum turning positive as we chase the end of the season. Gabriel Jesus getting healthy and back into the team cannot come soon enough. He's back in training. It's really, really exciting. Him coming back in is just... I mean, Eddie did a really good job. He exceeded expectations, but he's just not Gabriel Jesus. He's not. Very few people are, and I think the impact on the whole team, Gabriel Martinelli especially, the link up between Jesus and Martinelli is just so much greater. I sound like Pep Guardiola. So much greater than Eddie and Martinelli. I mean, Martinelli's drop-off has clearly coincided with Eddie coming into the team. I don't think that's a coincidence. And it's not so much a knock on Eddie as it is just he's not Gabriel Jesus, and that's okay. Gabriel Jesus is a world-class number 9, world-class attacking player. He transformed the club the way that he played in the first half of the season, even when the goals dried up. It wasn't an Alex Lacazette situation. I mean, this was a guy who was providing so much more to the so much more to the team than Alex Lacazette ever fucking could. Yeah, that's enough of the love in for Gabriel Jesus. We've been at this for 50 plus minutes, so I think it's time to call it. My name is PJ Davidson. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at AbsoluteAFC. That's AbsoluteAFC. Check us out on the web at absoluteafc.com. That's www.absoluteafc.com. Find us on Facebook as well. We always post the blogs and everything on there. But yeah, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a rating wherever you are listening to this podcast from. We certainly appreciate it. Please reach out anytime, comments, questions, anything you'd like to see in the blog, on the podcast, what have you. This is a work in progress, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. I certainly am. And once again, I apologize for the slight break in posts and pods, but we are very much back and ready to go. Yeah, let's get 3 points on Wednesday tomorrow. Come on, you Gunners. Cheers.